are welcome to this lecture. In this lecture, we continue with Unit 4, Internal Control System. And in this session, which is session 5, the focus is on Internal Control Report to Management. Internal Control Report to Management. At the end of this session, you should be able to outline the principal purpose of reports to management and describe the nature and content of management letter and write a management letter. So this session basically outlined the need for auditors to communicate weaknesses identified in the accounting and internal control systems to management and to describe the nature and the contents of such report. So these are the objectives that must be achieved at the end of this session. Introduction. There is a need for the auditors to communicate any weaknesses discovered in the internal control systems to the management of the client entities. And this communication takes the forms of management letter, letter of weakness, or internal control letter. Where the audit work is performed on more than one visit, the auditor normally gives report to management after the interim audit that has been done or that has been completed, as well as the final audit, and particularly if there are procedures that need to be improved before the final year audit. So if the audit is done in group or in stages, after each stage there has to be a communication to management, and if there is a need for some procedures to be improved before the final audit, that is communicated to management before the final visit so that those procedures can be worked on. Let's look at the principal purpose of reports to management. What are the principal purposes of reports to management? Now, the reports are sent to management to enable the auditors to comment on the design and operation of the accounting and internal control systems examined during the course of the audit and to make suggestions for their improvement. So they are assessing the internal controls, any weakness that there is a need for improvement, they comment that to management. Now, another principal purpose is to provide other constructive advice. For example, comment on potential economies or improvement in efficiency identified during the audit, and as well to communicate other matters that have come to the auditor's attention during the audit. So these are some principal purposes of report to management, why there is a need for the report to be sent to management. Let us now look at material weaknesses in accounting and internal control systems. A material weakness within this context is a condition which may result in a material misstatement in a financial statement. And if these weaknesses are identified that are material, they should be communicated in writing to the directors of the company, the audit committee, or an appropriate level of management on a timely basis. So should be communicated on time so that that information which is being communicated become relevant to the decision or the procedures or amendment that must be made. However, in a situation when no material weaknesses are identified during the audit, the auditors may choose not to issue a report to directors or management, but they may, however, need to inform them that no report is to be issued. When there is no weakness, no report is issued, but there should be some information stating that report will not be issued. However, if there is a material weakness, that weakness must be communicated in writing to the various people who are charged with governance. Addressee of reports to management. Who do the auditors address the weaknesses and internal control to in management? Now, when addressing this report, the auditor should consider which directors or members of management have the power to act on the findings. So the weaknesses that has been identified, which director or member of management have the power to act on that finding. However, it is also appropriate to address the report to the board of directors, the audit committee, or any similar body. So the report must be addressed to directors, audit committee, or the body. Now, in any report to directors or management, the auditors need to explain that the report is not a comprehensive statement of all the weaknesses which exist or of all improvements which may be made, but that it documents only those matters which have come to their attention as a result of the audit procedures performed. That explains why they don't give absolute assurance but a reasonable assurance. In a sense that the report they are issuing, they need to state clearly that the report is not a comprehensive statement of all the weaknesses that exist within the organization, or is not an improvement or an all improvement which may be made, because they only discover what comes into their attentions as a result of the audit procedures performed. So this must be stated so that it will not be taken or they will not be misunderstood. Third parties interested in reports to directors or management. So there are certain instances where third parties will be interested in the audit report that is sent to management. Now, any report to directors or management is a confidential communication. So the reports that the auditor is giving to the directors or management must be held confidential. And it is appropriate to ensure that third parties who see the report understand that it was not prepared for their benefit. Now, the report is being prepared to directors or management, and then the auditor cannot disclose the content of that report to third parties. They have to go to management or the third party to obtain that information. And once they get hold of that information, they should ensure that, or it is understandable that the report is meant to management or the directors and not to third parties. So care needs to be taken to protect the auditor's position from exposure to liability to any third party who may seek to rely on a report which was not intended for their use. So the third party might want to rely on that report, and if there is a liability, then they want to put it or charge it against the auditor. So the auditor needs to be protected from that exposure to liability, because the report is not meant for the third party. Now, so the auditors ordinarily state in their report to management that the report has been prepared for the sole use of the entity. For the sole use of the entity. So, and as such, it must not be disclosed to a third party without a written consent of the auditors. So even if management want to give it out, there has to be some written consent coming from the auditors before such information can go out. Now, no responsibility is assumed by the auditors to any other person. Responsibility is with directors and management, but to the third party, there is no responsibility that is assumed. The specimen management letter. What goes into the letter that is sent to management? Now, there has to be an address. Where is the letter going to? There has to be a heading stating clearly the period in which the report covers. There has to be an introduction, and there have to be a body. And in the body of this letter, it has to state the weakness in present system. So the weaknesses that were found in the present system, and this will be done across the various level, whether it is the sales, receipts, purchases, payroll, and co. You have to identify the weaknesses in all those systems, the implication of the weakness in the system, and then the recommendation of or recommendation to those weaknesses. So for each of the areas, be it payroll, be it sales, be it purchases, every weakness that is identified, what is its implication and what is the recommendation. For that, you provide a general conclusion. So this is the specimen. When you take a critical management letter, a letter from the auditor to management, basically it contains these items. So in summary, we have looked at the principal purposes of report to management and the nature and content of management letter. Try as much as possible to read over the topic or read over the the topics in the manual so that it will enhance your understanding. Thank you and see you in the next session.